it is, the moment you've been waiting for. Another episode of Marketing Management and Money with your hosts, Ryan and Ryan. Thank you so much for joining us. It is a pleasure to have you. As always, we are super excited to do this episode in particular because we have some really cool things going on that we're going to talk about in a minute. But before we get there, we're going to talk about debt today. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
Right? Debt's always bad.
I'm just thinking to myself, like that was a great introduction. And then it's like, we're going to talk about debt. But you got to understand debt.
There's differences in debt, right?
Yeah.
Different kinds of debt.
Mm-hmm. And so, you know, when we're talking about debt here, we're going to get into some of the nerdy finance. And we're going to understand that, you know, you can calculate debt. You can understand whether you are over-leveraged or under-leveraged. And you can understand what to do to kind of make that happen.
Yeah.
But this is, you know, you said we have some big things to announce. I'm going to do a sneak peek here.
Ooh, baby.
So we are super excited that our training Growth by the Numbers is now online.
Right before you announced, I was going to be like, we're going to cut to a break to one of our sponsors.
Exactly. So we do our podcast, Marketing Management and Money, where we talk about marketing, management, and money, obviously.
Right.
But we also do our trainings. And in the trainings, these go in depth and they take you through the full, you know, A to Z that you need to know. And one of our most popular trainings is Growth by the Numbers. It's something that we cover finance. And as we're talking about debt today, if you're getting a little bit lost in some of this and you're like, oh man, I really want to dig in deep, or when we do like the ratio analysis episodes, or talk about the balance sheet, or any of these, you know, cash flow that's super critical, you know, pricing your products and services, all of these things. So we cover them in depth in Growth by the Numbers. And we've been doing Growth by the Numbers for the last 4 years regionally. And so it's basically, you know, we'll go as far as we're willing to travel. But now that we've gone online with the full program, we can go anywhere. And so we're super excited about that. We're going to talk about that at the end of the show. I don't want to make the whole show a commercial. I know. You're looking at me right there. You're just like, all right.
So much for a sneak peek. That was a full-on pitch, man.
Oh, no. You just wait until I pitch. I'm excited about this because
I know I am too. This is really cool because this is like something, because these are working trainings, right? Like this is get into the meat of it and work your way through it kinds of trainings that we do. They're awesome. We see great results from the people that attend these trainings. They are able to go on and do great things in their business because these things become intuitive and they make sense, right? So it's really cool that we got it online. I'm excited about it too.
When I've had business owners come up to me and tell me they're just like, I haven't understood this ever. And, you know, finally, I know what I'm doing with financials. Like, I don't have an accounting background. I don't have, you know, I didn't go to school for this. And you summed it up in a full training. And to me, that's like the end result. Yeah. Why we're doing this is we want to help the small businesses. So I am passionate about it.
But let's wait till the end.
But let's wait till the end. We'll get into an actual episode. And so for those of you who are interested in learning a little bit more, we're going to cover that in the end. But right now we're going to talk about debt. And here's the thing about debt. It's there in your small business, whether you want it to be there or whether you don't. Now, it's possible to not have debt in your business. But this is what happens when you don't have debt in your business. One, it's kind of a very unique, rare situation when it's healthy. Right. Or two, and this is the most common, you're actually holding back your own success because you are not taking advantage of a tool that is there to help you grow. Now, if you're a service-based company, it's very possible, if you're a small service-based company, it's very possible that you really don't need debt. That, you know, you just provide the service that you do. You know, let's say that it's professional services, like you're a bookkeeper, or you are, you know, like maybe a massage therapist, or you are, you know, a yoga instructor, or, you know, like a stylist or something like that. Yeah. You know, a lot of these businesses, they get by just fine without any debt.
Yeah.
But they are limited by themselves.
Yep.
So if I'm a hairstylist,
their time becomes their limiting factor.
Exactly.
Not the finances.
I can only make money while I'm working.
Yep.
If I'm a massage therapist, and I see this happen a lot with massage therapy, is they're just like, I physically can't do more sessions in a day. It just, it's ripping my hands apart. And, and so I'll see these professionals. I mean, even if you're an attorney or an HR specialist, then you're limited by the hours you have in a day. And so what do you see them do? They're like, oh, I want to expand my business. Well, they start bringing on partners or
they got to hire more time.
Or exactly. And then they start kind of setting up, like instead of me just being a hairstylist, I'm going to own the salon. And it's like, well, how do you get there? Debt. It's the tool that gets you there. And so I want to talk about debt as a tool, and how you kind of grow into debt and how you manage debt. When is it healthy, and when is it hurting you?
Well, and I think that's a great place to start. Is how business debt is different from consumer debt, because I think that a lot of people have a stigma around debt, and because they're viewing it as like one general thing, right? And
like debt is debt.
Debt is debt.
You get
debt,
some people who are very conservative,
bad.
And they're just like, debt is debt.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even people who aren't necessarily super conservative, they're just, it's like, well, then I have payments. Then I have, because even in business, right? You leverage that capital, and all of a sudden you got to pay it back. And so that commitment, rather, not necessarily the payments per se, but the commitment of taking that on, right? Of utilizing that tool, it can be scary, right?
Yeah.
And so, but there's a definitive difference, right? This isn't, I really like how you convey this normally. Maybe I should let you do this, but I'm going to kind of steal your thunder here.
Steal the thunder.
Right? So you've conveyed it like this in the past, and I actually really like it because it's super simple. Regular consumer debt isn't good because we're consuming things, right? We are utilizing that money that we don't currently have for something that we want right now, and we're consuming it, right?
Or taking.
Right. We're just taking. And with business debt, it's the other way around, right? We're taking that money on to be able to give our products, our services, to provide those out to the community and the world that we live in. And I think at the core of every entrepreneur is to better the world in some way, shape, or form. Right. I mean, even if you're like some completely
self-serving,
greedy, I'm going to take over the world so I can be rich.
The only way you can do that is providing goods and services that people want.
Right. It's doing good is the necessary evil of your life.
Ooh.
It's the bane of your existence.
Okay. I'm feeling a new episode coming on.
That was deep.
Yeah.
Twisted. But and that's how it becomes a good thing. That's how it becomes a tool, right? Rather than this negative thing that you need to be scared of committing to and all that.
Yeah. So there's something that I like to lay a foundation when you're understanding debt, and I take it right off of the financial statements. So I love going into the financial statements. And when I say financial statements, I mean profit and loss and balance sheet.
Yeah.
Every business needs to be managing a profit and loss and a balance sheet. I don't care how big or small, how long you've been in business, whether you feel like you've got a good pulse on your business or not, you need to manage your P&L and your balance sheet, right?
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to talk about the balance sheet side, which is usually where businesses are less familiar. They're less comfortable with that balance sheet.
Right.
But the balance sheet is a super powerful tool. Like strong businesses get there by managing a balance sheet.
Yeah, for sure.
And so the basic equation of a balance sheet is assets equal liability plus equity. Any balance sheet for any business is going to be your assets equals your liability plus your equity. Now, another way to look at this is we use liabilities, which is another word for debt, and equities, which is another word for ownership, to pay for the business assets.
Yep.
So if you want to grow the assets of your business, there's only two ways that you can do it. You can do it by increasing your debt, or you can do it by increasing your ownership. Now, think about ownership this way. This is not ownership that you have access to per se. This is money that has gone into the business. So if I'm going to start up a business and I invest $100,000 of my own money, I now tied up $100,000 of equity to produce $100,000 of cash, the asset, to balance the balance sheet. Well, if I keep putting all that money in equity and I put none of it in debt, what that's saying is that, yeah, I've got all these assets, but I've tied up all of my personal equity to get there.
Right.
And so a lot of times in business, if you're saying, oh, I have no debt, what you're actually doing is you're tying up all of your personal equity into the business. Now, there are times and places where that's a smart move. That's a little bit more complicated than what we're going to get into in this podcast episode.
Yeah.
But oftentimes you don't want to do that. Oftentimes it's healthy to have some debt because then you're not tying up all of your personal assets exclusively to grow your business. And so, you're using other forms of money and other forms of capital to do that. And so when you're talking about, the giving and the taking scenario, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, the giving side of the business, using debt to kind of grow that business, it can be healthy. It's not always a negative. And people automatically, they're just like, oh, debt is bad. I'm like, not always. There are many instances where it's good.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to start off there and clarify that point right up front, because I don't want anybody checking out on this episode, because it really is such a powerful thing that businesses that aren't utilizing it or aren't utilizing it correctly, they can take on and really see some great results with it, right?
Right.
So what's the next kind of step here? We've clarified that personal debt and business debt aren't the same thing now. As an entrepreneur or a small business owner, I'm like bought into this idea and I say, okay, sure. I've been funding this with my paycheck, my bi-monthly paycheck.
Right.
How can I, and I want to see some exponential growth here, and I know it's there. So I'm willing, you guys have convinced me I'm willing to take on an infusion of capital. Then what? Do I just run down to the local Western Union and say, hey,
get as much as they'll give me?
Grandma,
yeah,
send me some cash.
So
you ask your brother-in-law?
No. Oh,
that's not debt.
No, it is debt, but that's not healthy debt.
No, that's a gift, because
if
you've loaned money to somebody, your brother-in-law, to start his business, just write it off as a gift.
Yeah,
you're not getting that back.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's no longer debt or equity. That's gone.
Also, you no longer have a relationship with that dude.
Yeah, that's gone too. So if you're on board with the idea that debt is okay, then the next question to ask is, how much debt is okay?
Sure.
And there's a lot to this. And I want to go back to the fact that to really answer this question, you need to get into the balance sheet.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about that a little bit more, but let me start with kind of a simple concept. It's a very, very good concept. It's just not overly complicated. And this is where I always like to start. So debt carries with it a percentage.
Yep.
If I'm going to take out a loan, then, it's going to be 8%, 12%, 25%, whatever. And so I'm going to pause here for a second and state that it's not uncommon for a risky business to have a really high interest rate. And so, don't be shocked. Like this isn't your car loan. This isn't your, this isn't your mortgage payment. Like, this can be a very high interest rate. Now, if it's a low interest rate, if it's on par with, like a car loan or, some other conventional debt that you might have, then it's typically not against your business. It's against your personal credit.
Right.
And just be sure that you understand that when you're going to your bank or your credit union. Be sure that you understand whether this is a loan against the business or a loan against you personally.
Yep.
And most of the time it's against you personally for a startup business. If you're under 2 years old, they're not looking at the business, they're looking at you, and they're looking to see if you have the, the personal assets to back it up, if you make the income to back it up.
Well, and for the most part, even if you do have a substantial amount of income to back this up, being that young of a startup, it doesn't matter what you're in. Generally, it's a really risky move.
Yeah,
right?
It is.
I mean, this isn't a franchise owner that's like, hey, I'm coming to the bank because I'm going to open yet another franchise.
Yeah, proven method type business. Yeah. This is a...
Hey, I've got this great idea.
Mm-hmm.
This new currency that's going to be completely digital.
Right.
Nobody's ever going to see it.
I still don't get how people like farm Bitcoin. That just... I've had it explained to me many times.
It's like gravity and magnets and electricity. Nobody understands it. It just works. Nobody understands it.
Thanks, Captain Obvious. So, anyway, getting back to the whole
power
idea.
of attention. Sorry.
You love making fun of that, don't you?
I do. It's so rich.
Yeah. So, when we're talking about debt, there's there's a percentage that you're going to pay back, and you can get into whether it's continuous compounding or
right.
Honestly, at the end of the day, that's not going to make or break. If you want to round up to account for that, sure, that's fine.
By all means.
Okay. But let's say that you're looking at a, 12%
sure
loan for your business. Like this money is costing you 12%. Okay.
Right.
So, and when I give these percentages, I'm usually giving like annual rates. All right. I
was just going to clarify that point.
Do not go to a payday loan.
Gosh.
They'll give you. I'm going to give you 6% a day. Like,
those are the worst.
Yeah,
scum of the earth. Ugh.
So
there's another episode right there. Ooh, my gosh.
Yeah. So we're talking your traditional, proven financial methods. It's typically banks and credit unions.
Yeah.
That's what we're discussing right here, right? So let's say that you've got something for 12%. In a business, this is where it makes sense. If I'm getting a return on investment greater than 12%, that's a good use of capital. Yet if I can borrow money at 12% and I can use that money in my business to grow my business and return on that at like 15% or 20% or 50%, that's a good use of capital. Now, if I borrow at 12% and I can only return at 10%, that's a bad use of capital.
And so clarify that point really quick. When you're saying that you're returning at 10%, you're talking about the margins that you make off of selling your product or selling your service.
Yeah. So, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, at the end of the day, when I cover everything,
exactly.
what is that profit margin that I'm going to make?
Right.
How much money am I going to make? So, and you don't have to do it as a percentage. You could look at it as a debt payment. So let's say I've got a monthly debt payment. I'm going to use some simple math numbers here, right? I've got a monthly debt payment of $500 a month. Well, if I can take that money and I can generate $1,000 of profit, be clear here, profit, not sales, because $1,000 of sales doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting even $500 of profit. Many businesses you're not.
Yeah, there are a lot of little hidden things that you have to account for that maybe you're not thinking about.
Yeah, and so as I'm looking at that, I'm looking at it and I'm saying, okay, if I am getting the, if I'm paying $500 a month on that debt and I'm making $1,000 a month profit, additional profit because of that debt, I'm up $500 a month in profit.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, I am oversimplifying this, because technically the way that I'm going to do this, is I'm going to do it ratio analysis off of the balance sheet.
All right.
But
so
there's nothing wrong with looking at it and saying, hey, I'm profitable. I make more money than what I borrowed.
Sure.
It works. There's nothing wrong with that.
So yeah, you're quote unquote oversimplifying it. But the reality of it is it's a really simple version of what you're doing when you're doing the ratio analysis. Like those are the results you're coming out with, right? And so this is a pet peeve of mine. So I'm going to hit on this for just 1 second.
Okay.
Because I hate it when, because I'm this way, and that's probably why I hate this so bad. I hate it when I see small businesses, or we're doing a training or working with a business, and they shy away from these things. Like they hear the word ratio analysis, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, like, I'm not there." You know what I mean? But the thing is like these aren't huge, big, complicated things.
Ratio analysis is comparing one thing to another thing.
Yeah,
that's it.
Right, and so it's not anything to be afraid of. These are honestly super simple things, and that's what I love about. Here's a little plug for the training again, but that's what I love about the training is it tells you exactly what you need to use and how you need to use it and what you're doing it for. Right? This isn't the freaking Calc 3 that you had to take in college to go on to whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That you have no idea what you're doing. You're just parroting back stuff, right?
This is 8th grade algebra.
Yeah. And you know exactly why you're doing it, right?
Yeah.
So it's nothing to be afraid of. These aren't, they might be foreign terms, but they're very easy to come to understand.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and when I said I'm oversimplifying it, let me make a clarifying point out there that is good to understand, and that is that your short-term debt is paid off with cash flow, and your long-term debt is paid off of profits. Yeah. And so, for me to just say that everything is profits, that was kind of an oversimplification. Sure. But if you are a profitable business, it's a lot easier to come up with that cash flow. It's not a guarantee, you know. I mean, you can just overspend.
Yeah,
you can burn that cash as quickly as it comes in. But
and that's why my wife does the finances. Just kidding.
But if you're a profitable business, then you're going to be okay. But see, if I'm measuring off of the balance sheet, so I'm going to do my return on investment or return on equity. That I'm going to run that calculation, and I'm going to see how well I'm using my equity.
Yeah.
And I'm also going to do my debt to equity ratio to compare whether I have more debt or whether I have more equity. So I'm going to take a second. I'm going to explain the debt to equity because that's the one that's a little bit more pertinent to what we're discussing right now.
Yeah.
Super simple calculation. You get on the balance sheet, you look at your total debt. You get on the balance sheet, you look at your total equity. You compare the two. And you want to see whether you have ratio-wise more debt or more equity. And so if I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, I've got a debt to equity. Let's say if I have, $100,000 of debt in my business and I've got $50,000 of equity, I'm at a debt to equity ratio of 2. And so for every dollar I have invested in the company, the bank or the creditors, they have 2. I don't actually own my own business because I'm upside down at a ratio of 2 to 1.
Right.
And so, that's the second thing that I'm looking at is the first thing is what kind of return am I getting on that debt? And the second thing I'm looking at is, well, how much total debt do I have? Because even if I'm getting a great return, at some point I got to just control myself, rein that in, and be smart about how much debt I'm willing to take on. Because the more debt you take, the riskier it puts your business.
Oh, yeah.
And it depends what industry you're in. There's not like, you want a 1-to-1 ratio or you want a 1.5, a ratio on that. Like, I can't give that because it totally depends the industry that you're in.
Right.
It also depends what stage of business that you are in. Startups tend to have higher risk, and so they might be a little bit over leveraged.
Yeah.
If that's part of their business plan.
Yeah.
But if I'm established and I'm in kind of a business that really doesn't, or an industry that doesn't require a ton of debt, and I'm a 3.5 on my debt to equity ratio, that's trouble.
Right?
You're going under. And so it's good, but it's the balance sheet that's telling you this.
So I want to pause for a second because I don't know. I can't remember. Help me out here. I can't remember if we've ever clarified where a balance sheet comes from.
So,
because I'm sitting here thinking about this, and I worked with a business in the beauty industry recently, and she came to me and she had her P&L from her taxes that she did, but didn't have a balance sheet, had no idea where to get it, no clue how to pull it together.
So, we did an episode. Oh my goodness, I just pulled it up. It was way back last year, about this time last year, is episode number 10.
Whoa.
And it was all about the balance sheet. It was not where it originates from. It was talking about common mistakes to look for in the balance sheet.
Okay.
And so,
I remember that.
when you talk about where does the balance sheet come from, I think the best way to state it is when you're doing your accounting, whether you're using a software, whether you're just doing journal entries and doing it yourself, whether you're hiring a bookkeeper or an accountant to take care of that for you, there's always a cause and effect. So everything that comes into your business, it's going to have at least two actions that it's going to do. And so that's kind of the balance side of things. And so every time that you do something in your business, you're going to affect that balance sheet. And the balance sheet, it's just a running tally of the assets, the liabilities, and the equity in your company.
Yeah.
And so,
those buckets that we talked about.
Those buckets, yeah, that's actually, that was another really good one. Let's see, episode 27. Here I am being a nerd, and I'm just like, on episode 27, but
minute 3.
And you know what I love is we both adjusted our glasses,
right? The
on a
dialogue
podcast.
Suddenly shifts. I know nobody could see this, right?
So, but yeah, there's some really, really good content. And unfortunately, we don't have the time to delve into all of that. And so this is where I'm going to shift. For those of you who are just listening strictly to the podcast episode, we are going to wrap up for the day. We are done talking about debt. For those of you who want to stay on for our shameless plug and commercial and promotion, because we're going to throw in a little bit of a discount here. If as you're going through on these financial concepts, it's difficult to understand them via a podcast.
Oh, for sure.
Because, you're just listening. And honestly, it's so much nicer to have not only the visualization in front of you, but one of the things on the Growth by the Numbers training is it's all spelled out. Mm-hmm. And so we walk you through. It's got the case studies, it's got the exercises, it's got the financial statements. And so instead of having to visualize and be like, okay, so in the podcast you said that I needed to take my total debt or my total liabilities and my equity, where do I get that? Like it shows you where to get that.
Yeah, these are examples that we provide.
Absolutely.
That you can go back to and reference as you're watching this video and listening to the explainer. It's great.
Yeah. And so we're pretty excited about this. This is if you want to get serious about your financials, and honestly, if you haven't gotten serious about your financials, you need to get serious about your financials. Think about this. Every day that you are making financial mistakes, it's compounding. It's like, oh, okay, well, I'm screwing up on that. Well, cool. You are now throwing money away because you don't know how to manage it.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's called Growth by the Numbers for a reason, because this is the only way that you're going to successfully grow your company. Yes, there's a lot of management topics. There's a lot of marketing topics. You need to understand those pieces too. But finance is the language of business, and you got to get it right.
And this is like the solid foundation that will allow your business to go wherever you want to take it, really. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I'm saying that unabashedly. Like, that's the truth. If you can master this aspect of your business, you literally can do anything you want with your business.
Yeah.
As long as you're not intentionally driving it into the ground.
Well, you said you can manage anything that you
could.
want.
You could do that.
So if you wanted to intentionally run it into the ground,
get the finances right, you can pound it face first right into the dirt.
Because your brother also has equity in it, and you try to think of a way to get him out of the company.
Yeah, exactly. But seriously, I honestly look at small business like a lot. I like cars, right? Mm-hmm. You look at a small business like this beautiful classic car that you're bringing to life, right? You've spent all of the time and energy and effort in doing things that nobody ever does to a car, right? Like stripping it completely down so you can coat the frame in special, like whether you're powder coating it or chroming it or whatever, right? Like you're doing ridiculously crazy things because it's that beautiful, sentimental thing to you. And right, your small business is like that. You spend so much time and effort doing things that normal work people don't do,
right?
Because it's insane, right? You wouldn't want to freaking take that down to your cheapo save on gas station and fill it up with the lowest grade you can find. They're scooping it out of the pond behind the shop. You're going to put premium freaking race fuel in that sucker, right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what this is allowing you to do for your business.
Right. Right. It really is that premium grade, premium quality. And, you know, do we love what we do? Absolutely.
Sure.
We hope that you can hear the passion in our voices. But at the same token, we also love hearing from the other business owners that, you know, they've taken our trainings and they're like, oh, you changed the way that I do business.
Yeah.
Like I am successful because of this training. And so we want to put it out there. We appreciate the podcast audience that we have. We love you guys because, you know, you've been with us.
Yeah.
We love seeing it grow, and we
Seriously.
love those who have, you know, they've supported us. They've helped us to make this show. So as a thank you, we want to let you know that we're going to put together a special just for our podcast listeners, and we're going to make this happen just for you guys. Now,
this is something we've done for a long time in person, right? And we've done this to huge crowds of small business owners, and it's a riot. It's a thrill to see these small businesses grow in these in-person trainings, right?
Yeah. But with the in-person, we're limited. We are limited to us, how far we can go. And honestly, right now, there's not a lot of travel happening.
Yeah. So that's why we developed this online training, so we can have a broader reach. Like, we really believe in these tools. They really have transformed businesses to go on to do amazing things.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, not only do we want to have this broader reach, but we want to reach out to our specific listeners. I mean, we love our listeners in India, Zimbabwe, Canada, Ireland. Like, you guys are awesome.
Yeah.
And we want to reach out to you. We want to say thank you and give you an opportunity to get this training. So normally this training, when we do it, it retails for just under $300 a person. That's what you're going to pay if you were to, you know, grab this live, or if you were to go on and just, you know, order it right now.
Yeah. Pay retail online.
Right. We're going to offer it for $97 for podcast listeners. So if you want the training, instead of paying the $300, you go through us, $97. The way that's going to work is you need to send an email to ryan@marketingmanagementmoney.com and just say, hey, I want the promo. You know?
That's it. It's easy as that. We don't have to go through any special loops or jump through any hoops or anything like that. We're just shoot us an email. Hey, schmucks, give me that deal. Holidays are around the corner, and I want to buy myself something nice.
Right. And so, you know, once you shoot us that email, we're going to give you the link that's going to give you the backdoor access, the $97 access. You're going to be able to get on, go to mastermind.com. That's where the training is hosted, and you're going to be able to access it for a fraction of the cost. Still the same great quality training, but that deal is unique to our podcast listeners. As a thank you, you guys have been with us for a while. You know, you keep hanging with us. We love it.
Yeah.
And we hope that you'll hang with us further. Take it to the next step. Really make your business happen.
Yeah. And I want to point out that I want to really drive this home. Like, this isn't available to anybody else. We're not putting this out anywhere else.
That's true.
Like,
yeah.
We're not promoting it locally. We're not promoting it online. We're not promoting it through social media. We're not putting it out anywhere else. This is exclusively for our podcast listeners. So you shoot us that email and you get that discount. You have that access to that full training
now,
to all of those tools.
Because this is so limited, we're only going to hold this for 30 days.
Yep.
So at the time that this podcast airs, you got 30 days to go in, make it happen. You know, this is something that you need to jump on. There's a limited amount of time. It's only to our podcast. This is exclusive for you guys. We hope you take advantage of it.
So with that, we are going to wrap this episode up finally. If you want that deal, shoot us an email at ryan@marketingmanagementmoney.com. That's RYAN @marketingmanagementmoney.com. Thank you guys so much, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Take care.